Alrighty, this is just We the People News, not attorney, not giving legal advice. Educational purposes only. Alright? Never look straight forward, always look around you, be able to protect yourself by any means necessary. Arm yourself with knowledge, use that Second Amendment. Now, this is the tribe, okay? And he's doing a thing of merchant, out of a book and all that, explaining merchant, okay? Now, it's banking, debt, and everything between. Okay, um, uh, just basically a form of commerce, and this is where we have been, where you kind of see people out there talking about uh, of the sea and all that, is because the merchant. Okay, and they just happen to bring it upon the land under the banking, under the administrative, um, under regulations. Uh, but the reason why I'm doing this section here is kind of show a little bit about substantive uh, due process, and it kind of describes a little bit of substantive due process through the procedure process. Okay, technically, what the lawyers should be doing is going through the substantive process, which they don't, to work its way down through the other process, due process, and all that. Right? You're gathering um, evidence, one way or the other. Right? You're collecting uh, facts, whether it's false or true. Remember, y'all, facts is just the middle ground. It's to either get to the truth of the investigation or get to the lies of the investigation. Okay? So,
legislation and regulations through substantive rulemaking, commercial law, merchant law, and who grants rights to and impose obligations on the public. Also, the true constitutional judicial powers have little to do in this system. They merely review substantive law or procedural law concerning these law, merchant, administrative affairs on the rare occasions that the judicial power is actually used. And we went over a good live stream on the Administrative Procedure Act. That's 5 U.S.C. 551(4) provides that a rule is an agency statement designed to implement, interpret, or prescribe law or policy. When agencies are authorized to prescribe law through substantive rulemaking, administrative regulations not only do deference, but is accorded legislative effect. Now, we know about the Chevron deference case and other aspects with administrative law and recent higher court decisions that have been setting judicial precedents for the ways that administrative agencies can interpret laws that go beyond what they've written down. So if it's not clearly written and specified in their rulemaking as how they're prescribing law, that they can't go and further interpret it in the courts. That it has to go strictly by what's written, and if it's not, it has to be deferred back to the legislature, not to the administrative agency that didn't clearly articulate the way they want the law prescribed or interpreted. They can't do interpretation outside of their rulemaking, and that's when it goes to court. It has to be looked at according to what they have in their rules, and no further interpretation can be done to be deferred back to the agency. It would defer back to the legislatures, and I believe that's still pretty active out there in the courts, and interesting one to keep track of because it does touch close to home when we're talking about administrative agencies. Administrative law, the law governing the organization and operation of the executive branch of government, including independent agencies, and the relations of the executive with the legislature, the judiciary, and the public. Administrative law includes the statutes endowing agencies with powers and establishing rules of substantive law relating to those powers. It's from Black's Law 7th edition. we were checking earlier from the 9th. The legislature could not, by adopting the Code of Criminal Procedure, change the substantive law of the state because no such authority was conferred by the Constitution. In the Rodosta case, we pointed out the difference between substantive and procedural law and said that, as relates to crimes, substantive law is that which declares what acts are crimes and prescribes a punishment for committing them. Procedural law is that which provides or regulates the steps by which one who violates a criminal statute is punished. So it declares what acts and prescribes a punishment, and the procedure says what steps are done to someone that's accused of a criminal statute, right? The statute relating to the criminal procedure is a law, but not substantive law. The term law includes substantive law and adjective law, or the law of procedure. Substantive law, speaking broadly, is that which creates duties, rights, and obligations. It orders and permits and forbids and announces rewards and punishments. That's your substantive law. As relates to crimes and offenses, it declares what acts are crimes and prescribes a punishment for committing them. Adjective or procedural law is that which provides a method of enforcing and protecting such duties, rights, and obligations as are created by the substantive law. The substantive laws is saying, like, I guess this is kind of how we have our statutes, and then the procedural laws would be the codes. The statutes say what needs to be done, the codes say how to do it. As relates to, well, at least in Florida, that's the way it is. As relates to criminal prosecutions, procedural law includes within its meaning whatever is embraced by the three technical terms: pleading, evidence, and practice. As relates to criminal prosecutions, procedural law includes within its meaning whatever is embraced by the three technical terms: pleading, evidence, and practice. And don't think that any of these things are easy terms. I've done about 20 on evidence already. All right, 20 live streams, on the law of evidence. This is nothing simple. Same with pleading and practice. In those words, do you see the statements as addressing free people? Oh, no. Or do they sound like a system of commands and prohibitions for slaves? Yes. Do free people knowingly authorize a servant legislative body to adopt a code that will grant them their rights and creates obligations? This is the law merchant and how merchants control nations. All right, so we'll be on to the next part, section 4, for the next live stream. We're about halfway. We've gone about halfway through the book, maybe a bit more. And I think there's some appendices at the end, so we're probably even more than that. Diesel for We the People Do says you must use substantive law to be clear before they could proceed forward on procedure. Exactly. Well, I'm glad you guys are still here and listening, because I know this has been one very deep topic, but one worth knowing, because as we see, this touches every aspect of all of our lives, anywhere in civilization around the world. No matter what laws, the law merchant has integrated itself into them and continues to do so more and more and to a higher degree all over the world. And by recognizing it and how it's being done, mainly through deceit, is the only way we can arm ourselves to be prepared to defend the rights and liberties and our God-given rights that we're supposed to be here to defend, that this country was set to do it for its posterity, that we have a duty and an obligation to reciprocate for our posterity. So with that said, I'd like to thank you all for attending. I sure hope you all will be here for the next one, where we'll continue with part 2 of the law merchant. We have one more comment here from Diesel We the People. I asked attorney why they don't use substantial law, and he says it's too complicated. Of course, they just want to argue evidence and procedural things. Substantive law is too complicated, of course. The procedure is just so simple and straightforward. It's very linear. and it doesn't require the deeper thought, the abstractions and synthesis that comes along when you look at a higher level of why you're doing things and not just what you're doing. So, yeah, I can see that being a common sentiment among that trade. Well, with that being said, I'd like to thank you all for.
And if you guys want to get a little bit more insight in this, because it's an hour and 13 minutes, and this is just part of it. He's going to come up with another video to cover the rest of this. So keep an eye on the tribe, okay? And remember, y'all, we must be armed with knowledge. We got to use that Second Amendment, arm ourselves. That way we can protect ourselves from the outside forces that want to cause us harm, and then make an excuse that we did something wrong. Victim explaining. Right? You made me do it. Goo 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 goo. Gaga gaga. I need a pacifier. Alright, being a little smart aleck, but that's the way they act. Literally. Okay? And an honest man, whether it's an officer or judges or anything, we give you some form of notice and an opportunity to cure. Right? They don't hide behind closed doors. If you hide behind closed doors, then you're not honest. Okay? Jesus says, woe to your attorneys. All right? So you religious people going out there calling for an attorney, you're going against God. All right? So you can say whatever you want to say, but Jesus warned you. All right? Because my people will perish due to lack of knowledge. All right? Again, Jesus. So there's two things right there that he's instructing you, religious people. All right? So quit playing the religious things and be one-sided on the people that's causing victims to everybody else, causing harm. There's a video out there. Here's the deal. An officer threw an old guy down on the ground, 65 years old, not in good shape or anything like that, over a bike light. Think about that, y'all. An officer, a young officer, big guy, pulled the guy off the bike and jerked him down to the ground over a bike light. When an officer can do that to you, that's not freedom, people. That's a slavery. And I thought we had the 13th Amendment. All right? Just saying. That's a violation of the 13th Amendment. This is We the People News. Till next time. Bye, y'all.